So here's my question: do you want a game that recreates realism?
Good question. Well, I hate to say yes and no, but wow, yes and no. I've been doing a series about simulation, and simulation always gets tagged with this whole realism thing, and that can be frustrating at times. But realism. In your own examples, you mentioned getting stuck in traffic or ordering from a Chinese menu, and I actually kind of liked the clock ticking there. Yeah, it can definitely go that way. When we try and do a gritty or realistic world, it can happen that reality is used as some kind of blunt object to hammer the players with how real it is. Which reminds me of the anecdote that Mark Reinhagen used to share about the creation of Wraith, the Oblivion, and how he had once created a game where all the characters were in hell, and the entire session was them being tortured in hell. Who'd want to play that? Very good question. I'm sure there's some people out there, but I'm not among them. For realism, what I look for is consistency is one of the primary things. I find that in games that are, let's say, narratively heavy, where the players have a lot of input on what their characters can do, and you can spend points to do wild stunts, I can find in certain cases that this doesn't fit the chosen genre of the group very well, or that parts of the group may not have the clearest sense of what the real atmosphere of the game that's being attempted is going for, that kind of thing. Playing Star Wars, you expect a certain level of action, and sweeping ideals and good and evil, and so if you humanize the stormtroopers, you have effectively destroyed the inherent reality in that game. You've certainly broken the genre. But in terms of realism in combat is quite important to me. Even if we're doing swashbuckling kind of stuff, sure, we'll get into impossible scenes and 3-to-1 odds and all that stuff. But swords have certain limitations. There are certain things that you can do with the sword that, and on it goes. But realism, it's a bugbear in the community, and whatever's popular, like cinematic, trumps realistic these days. But I do remember a time, late 80s, early 90s, where realistic combat was a primary selling point. Although what we discovered when we played it is that it was complicated combat as the vehicle toward realism. And, thanks to games like Ubiquity, we've maybe discovered that complicated isn't a requirement for realistic. What you need is a game that can give you consistent, predictable results, so that players can make good choices, and that if they're aware through good communication in the group about what kind of lethality there might be, or what kind of economy or social system or justice system or whatever, whatever level of realism, as long as they're intimately aware with that level of realism and can make choices accordingly, I think it's a good thing. It's when things are far too soft or just hand-waved for convenience or hand-waved for the sake of a better story that I get disappointed. And yeah. It all ties into the amount of information your group has about what it is you're trying to do. If you're playing with a group of martial artists, you can have a lot of fun with combat, and it can be extremely real, very gritty, or way over the top. It doesn't have to be any one thing. It just requires that the people around the table understand it very well if realism is going to be a factor. Interesting question.